Hey there, folks, and welcome back to the I Am CDB project. I, of course, am your host, CDB. You are not. And today, we're going to be using, once again, the Stirling razor, stainless steel, with the aggressive plate. As you can see there, pretty good blade gap. I'll talk more about that in a moment. We're just going to use the V-John cream. It says shaving cream with Bacti Guard. The Bacti Guard probably does nothing. Just my opinion, but it's lemon lime in scent. Using the West Coast Shaving brush. And by the way, I did reach out to the owner of West Coast Shaving to say, hey man, I'll pay for this brush. I've been using it so long, I like it, and so I'm gonna keep it, so therefore I'll pay you for it, just letting you folks know. Anyhow, let's lather some of this up and wet the face and all that good stuff. Put a little bit of, there's the color of the cream, by the way, it's bright yellow. And by the way, when you're applying cream and so forth, you can do it however you want. You know, really you can do just about anything the way you want as long as it works. You can put it in your brush, you can put a few dollops sort of on your face if you want to, like so, you know, whatever you want. It's no big deal. There's no right or wrong way to do it. People get obsessed about, oh, put a pea-sized dollop and all this. It's not all that big a deal. Do it the way you want to and go with it. You know, you don't have to get into the crazy degrees of detail on how this is done. This is shaving. If you've been doing it for a while, you know, you probably know what you're doing. If you're new, of course, pay a little more attention, but a lot of you have been doing this for a while. But I realize and recognize there are some folks who come along every single time who are new. And for that reason, I mentioned about comments. I know those of you who are regular viewers, forgive me. Folks, I rarely see the comments. So if you want a response, email me at cdb@imcdb.com and I'll give you a response. But I rarely see the comments. So just keep that in mind. I leave the comments open for you folks to discuss things amongst yourselves. And I don't moderate them and I mostly don't see them. A while back, I was seeing them in my email, but I don't really see them anymore. So if you're adding something there, it's just for the other viewers. I'm not seeing those. I'm just letting you know. Anyway, we've got ourselves lathered, and I was talking to someone about the Stirling razor here. And one of the things you'll notice here as I'm using this razor, I'm using it just the same way I use every other doggone razor. I'm not taking any special care. Now, you should always be careful when you're dragging a sharp blade, of course, across your face, but I'm not using any special technique with this, not being gingerly, I should say, not, you know, being super careful. Oh, I don't want to cut myself. My feeling has always been, if you're being really jittery and, you know, oh, I don't want to cut, you're probably going to cut yourself. So I use aggressive razors. This is just me talking, may not be good advice. But I'm using this razor the same way I use every other razor. And someone pointed that out to me in an email, said, you know, we've seen some other folks being real careful and oh, they're afraid to use it. And I'm like, it's supposed to be sharp. It is aggressive, but from my perspective, as far as razors go, you find the best angle at which it works, and then you go with it. I don't go any slower. I pretty much do the same thing all the time, minus the angle. You do need to find the effective angle that a razor works at, and that is not the same for every razor, and that's really a feel thing. No one can really tell you. You just have to feel, oh, there I see it. There it's cutting well. And then you just go with it. But as far as being, ooh, I gotta be super careful, I gotta go really light. No, I don't do that. And I think, see, when I received this razor to try, I received no information with it other than it was stainless steel. Nothing about aggression, so I can tell on my own it's aggressive. But no other information, so I can just use the razor in front of everyone on video and just go, hey, here's how it's going. I don't have any preconceived notions based on other videos people have made or long articles on the shave sites that break down every dimension of the razor and all that kind of stuff. It is just simply use it. And folks, I'm telling you, that is, in a lot of cases, the best way to know. In fact, the best way to know how anything's going to work for you is just to use it. And I'm not asking you to ignore all the content, because if you did, you'd be ignoring mine too. But what I am suggesting is make up your own mind. Try to limit, if you feel like you're going to be influenced, like in terms of if something's good or not, and you just want to try it and then watch the content and see if you agree. Because if you try it a couple times and you have a terrible shave, and then I come in here going, this is the greatest thing ever, that means nothing to you. So try it yourself. Certainly look at the content, but be careful. The reason that I'm sort of doing this, I just call it sort of blind, without having my leather a little bit thin. Still working, but maybe we'll add a little bit more. Anyway, what I was going to say was, I do it without a lot of research, is because I just want to see how it works. And I don't want to be influenced by other people. Oh, this is great. Because I'm telling you, and I don't care what anybody tells you, once you hear a dozen people praise something about how great it is your tendency to sort of buy into it. And it gets in the way sometimes. There are objective reviewers that can certainly, minimize that, I'm sure. But from my perspective, for me, it's just easy to try it and give organic thoughts. And so this is the reason I do it the way that I do it. And that works well for me. I totally understand. You may want to do it a different way. And maybe you like to do a lot of research before. And I understand that before you spend your money, it's obviously important. And so that's why we do these videos, sort of help you. But ultimately, when you're making your decision about whether or not it meets the requirements in terms of being a great razor or not, you have to decide. I can't decide, obviously, for you, nor can anyone else. And even if 99 out of 100 people say something is great, you might be the one that it just doesn't work for. And so I'm saying take it with a grain of salt. That said, if something tends to be getting a lot of positive talk and praise, then it's probably good. And, that's a general rule, but not everything, because sometimes things are just marketing. There's really good marketing goes into it and people buy it, and the product's really just average, but there's so much marketing that goes into it. You really can convince people that something is far better than it is. But from the perspective of this razor, my feeling, again, keep in mind I use all razors from, the only razors I really avoid are the super, super mild, like a Feather ASD2. That's just so mild that I kind of have difficulty with it. At one time I really liked it, but then once I continued using other razor, it's got kind of a weird angle, and it's just super mild. And so anything from just regular mild to very aggressive is okay for me. Now, if you're just averse to aggression and aggressive razors, maybe this one isn't for you. I mean, you really try it, but it's nothing to fear and to be like, oh, that's too aggressive. Like a lot of people fear the Mule R42. Don't bother, or R41. Don't bother correcting me on how I say that. I don't care. As I've said before, don't care. I just don't. And you can make an argument that I should care, but I don't, and I'm not going to. So it's that simple. Anyway, there's nothing to fear unless you just cannot use an aggressive razor. And if you can't, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Maybe your skin just doesn't like it. And you have to listen to your face, as I'm well known for saying. Listen to what your face is telling you. And if you picked up this razor and your skin's a horrible shave, maybe you set it aside and try something else and then try it again later. But for me, as you can see here, I'm using it the same way that I use every other razor. Yes, it's pretty aggressive on this plate. You can feel the blade, but I don't feel it's menacing or anything to be afraid of. It's the same thing about feather blades and like, ooh, feather, ooh. You know, you're going to get eviscerated if you use a feather blade. So sharp. I mean, you want sharp. Hello. My issue with blades has always been, it's not about whether something is too sharp. It's about whether it's smooth. Because if it's sharp and smooth, that's perfect. But if it's sharp but a little bit rough, that's not good. So when people talk about sharp things, when it comes to shaving, you want the sharpest thing possible. You want a sharp straight razor. You don't want a dull. I mean, that's where you get bad shave and you get something dull. But when it comes to, you know, these type of things, or a knife or scissors or anything you're cutting with, you want them to be sharp, not dull. So I always thought the feather thing was overblown. Like, ooh, you better be afraid. You got that. He's pulling out that feather. Ooh, look at that. And I'm like, oh, come on, man. Come on. And it had me convinced too early on. But you use them, you're like, okay, it's a razor blade. It's sharp. You know, this one is Astra. It's sharp. It will cut you. You know, if you're not doing if you ever go this way, horizontally, when this blade is oriented this way, you're going to cut yourself. It's that simple. If you're not going up and down, or at least there's some diagonal movement, you are going to cut yourself. If you're sloppy and just, you know, press it against your face too hard, you're going to cut yourself. But generally speaking, apart from that, just use the razor. Nothing to be afraid of. I've used it a number of times now. I've had no issue with it whatsoever. No creepers, cuts, or weepers. So for me, it's been just fine. I don't have any complaints about it. If you are hearing all this stuff about it's too aggressive, it could be for you if you just can't use an aggressive razor. I get it. But don't be concerned to the point where you're just not even going to give it a shot. That's my recommendation. And if you're new to wet shaving generally and you're not accustomed to using aggressive razors, maybe it's not a good choice. All right. But if you've been doing it a while, you know what you're doing, then I don't think there's anything to fear. That's just my opinion on this Stirling stainless steel razor. Even with the aggressive plate, and I have no idea what the blade gap is still, and I actually like that because I can just use it and go, hey, it worked fine. Maybe it's really aggressive. I don't know. It definitely you can feel the blade, but I feel like I use the same way as I pick up any razor, like I used this one yesterday. So I basically use it the same way. Mine is finding that angle. So my advice, if you're interested, check it out. If you just absolutely can't tolerate anything aggressive and you got to use like a Gillette Tech or Feather ASD2, maybe it's not a good choice, but you really need to decide that. And don't be discouraged, you know, by people who just go, oh, it's way too much. You know, if you're in the habit of using aggressive razors, you know, give it a shot. I want to thank Rod for sending it along. I will be sending this back soon. Thanks for letting me give it a shot. Again, stainless steel. I've had no problems with it, so try it if you want to. I want to thank everybody once again for joining me. Until next time, I am CDB. You are not. God bless.